Carolyn Cloyd, an Arcola, Illinois native, is the director of the local Coles County United Way and an advocate for veterans of Coles County, past, present, and future. She helps to bring education and awareness to the community by being associated with organizations such as United Way, the Mattoon Kiwanis Club, CASA, the Coles County Historical Preservation Advisory Council, and the Run for the Fallen. Born on Fairchild Air Force Base near Spokane, Washington, Carolyn Cloyd's family settled in Coles County area upon her father's retirement from the U.S. Armed Forces. Carolyn was born to parents Helen Christine Sally Smart and Frank Richardson Cloyd. Her father Frank served in the 608 Engineer Light Equipment Company with the 3rd Army during the World War II. He was also enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in 1947 and served with the Sentinels of Peace in the 567th Missile Squadron for 20 years. Ironically, as I learned from Carolyn, the Sentinels for Peace was in charge of the nuclear missiles during that time around the Cuban Missile Crisis. Frank met Carolyn's mother, Helen, while he was stationed in England, and on June 26, 1954, they were married in a small chapel in Newbury, Berkshire, England, alongside Helen's sister and her husband, Ross. Interestingly enough, I did notice that there was a double wedding, and I had asked Carolyn about it, and this is what she had to say.
Okay, my mom and her sister were marrying two military men, my father and my Uncle Al. Uncle Al. Uncle Al married my other aunt. I don't think they appreciated that. Uncle Russ. And they decided to have a double marriage, or a double wedding, and I don't know, it just, they were in England. Both my dad and Uncle Russ were in the military, and they met these two sisters over there, and they were beautiful young women. They really were, and they just had this beautiful wedding with the two men in their Air Force uniforms, and they were married in Newbury, Berkshire, England.
Carolyn's largest influence in her life was her father. She became enamored with all the stories about her father's life in the military, and at a very early age, it set the stage for Carolyn to become involved with local veterans and their history. During her childhood, she stated that her father was very involved with the upbringing of her and her siblings. Her mother, as a child, had suffered from a long stem of abuse, and it still played a very large part in her adult life. Since her mother had a difficult time coping with the emotional stress of that abuse in her past, it made it difficult for her to function in the marriage and as a mother at times. Frank, being a very strong and compassionate individual, made it his duty to see that his family would survive any obstacles that came their way, and in essence was the backbone for Carolyn's family unit. He took care of his wife and children and was able to provide the love and protection Carolyn needed, which helped her mold her into the woman she is today. Carolyn had made mention during the interview that there was a little story behind her father's middle name, and this is what she had to say. All right, Miss Carolyn, so tell me the story about your dad's middle name.
Okay, well, it's a funny story, and he used to love to tell the story. My dad was actually born and named Leon Carl Cloyd, and then his family, they were sharecroppers living in Kentucky, tobacco farmers, and they moved on to some land owned by this gentleman named Frank Richardson, and he took a shine to my dad, and he decided that he wanted my dad to be named Frank Richardson. It's a great mystery to all of us, because I can just imagine somebody coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I want your son to be named after me," and I'd be like, "I don't think so." But for some reason, my grandparents agreed to it, and the rest is history, as they say. Frank Richardson Cloyd. But honestly, I can't ever imagine him being a Leon. I just can't. He is Frank Richardson to me, so.
Carolyn attended grade school and high school in Arcola, Illinois, and then attended college at Lakeland Community College in Mattoon, Illinois, and Parkland Community College in Champaign, Illinois, where she received 2 associate degrees, one in marketing, and one in English. During the month of September in 1984, on the 17th day, Carolyn gave birth to her one and only blessed baby boy, Franklin Mark Lucas Cloyd, or affectionately known as Luke. During this time in her life, she was a single parent that worked for TCI Communications, and she knew that being a full-time mother and juggling a full-time career as a customer service representative and office manager would have its challenges. So she was thankful that her father played such a pivotal role in her son's life. When speaking to Carolyn, I learned very quickly that Frank and Luke were two peas in a pod, so to speak. She recalled glowing memories about Luke's childhood and his love and respect for his Papa Frank, who he nicknamed Franco Americano later in life. One of Carolyn's greatest joys in life was being a mother to Luke and seeing Luke's interaction with her father. Luke, like Carolyn, also grew up admiring his grandfather and the priceless stories of his times in the military. Carolyn recalls her son telling her at a very young age that he was going to be like his Papa Frank and join the military one day. Carolyn was able to see that young boy's dream become a reality. Her young son grew up to become Private First Class Luke Cloyd of the Illinois Army National Guard. She said that he was so excited about the possibilities of having a military career. Tragically, Private Cloyd was in a motorcycle accident on August 6, 2008, right before he was about to deploy to Afghanistan, and it took his life. He was 21. I asked Carolyn during the time of the interview to tell us a little bit about Luke, and this is what she said. So we are in September the 17th, and you have just had your blessed baby boy. So I want you to tell me a little bit about Luke.
Well, it's difficult to say just a little about Luke. He was a huge personality. He was just a loving kid, and he loved his grandfather. He doted on his grandfather, and his grandfather doted on him. And the two of them were like two peas in a pod. And I was very close to my dad, so it was just kind of it was nice for me to see the two of them. But Luke was just an exuberant kid. He didn't have a shy bone in his body. He wasn't afraid of anything, and he loved people.
Oh, that's good.
He just, I can't even express enough how lovable that kid was. I probably shouldn't say this, but there was this older lady in our neighborhood, and she just loved to talk. And when she would come out, all the other kids would scatter, but not my son. My son would run to her. And there was nothing wrong with her. It's just they didn't want to get caught talking to her because she would just talk and talk and talk. Not my son. He'd run. He'd make a beeline for her, and he'd be there, and he'd be hugging her, and he'd be kissing her because he just loved people. He loved to talk to people. He was compassionate about people. I mean, I can't tell you, after my son died, I had several people come to me and say, you know, when everybody else was picking on me, Luke always stood up for me. Luke was always good to me, and Luke was between me and all those kids being mean to me, and that meant the world to me. That was the kind of kid I wanted him to be, and it was. I can't even take credit for that. That's just the kind of kid he was. So.
Well, I think that he's a chip off the old block. So now, is Luke named for your father?
He is. He's actually Franklin Mark Lucas.
Okay.
My brother's name's Mark, so he was named after the two of them. But I always intended to call him Luke, so that's where the Luke got stuck in there.
Okay.
So.
Now, I know he was a private first class.
He was.
So let's talk about that, because that's an accomplishment.
Well, I want to say this. I hope it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but I sometimes get the feeling that people think people join the military because they've got no other choices. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case with my son. My son wanted to be like his grandfather, and his grandfather served 23 years in the military, and that's always what he wanted to be. And when he told me that's what he wanted to do when he was young, I thought, he'll grow out of that. It wasn't that I didn't want him to do it necessarily. It's just, it's something that you kind of want to talk to him about it. And, of course, by the time he was talking about getting in, for real, when he was old enough, there were, there was the thing going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I might have wanted to talk to him about it a little bit. He wanted to be like his grandfather. That was always his goal.
Wow. And so he got in, right at 18 then, or?
Well, no, actually he was 21.
He was 21 when he came in, okay. And so how many tours was he able?
He actually didn't make any.
Okay,
He was about to go over.
Okay.
He was about to go to Afghanistan.
Okay.
And he was killed in an accident here.
Yes. Well, I think that his heart was in the right place, because you're talking about someone that had compassion for people.
And he did, absolutely.
And then for him to do the ultimate act of serving, signing up to serve, to protect millions of people.
And he loved this country. I
Yeah.
mean, I got that from my father, and he got that from me and my father. But he truly, truly loved this country, and he wanted to serve. And to be honest, he may be one of the few people, he really loved the Army. I mean, he loved the calisthenics, and he loved just the, the crawling in the dirt.
Oh my gosh!
He loved every aspect.
He's a typical boy.
Yeah, he was all boy. He loved it though. I mean, he really found his niche in the Army.
That's great.
And I think he would have made a career of it.
Sure.
I do.
Absolutely.
He loved it. And his lifelong best friend had joined as well. The two of them were going to serve together in Afghanistan. And
Yeah.
Joe went ahead, obviously had to, but Joe went
Yes.
ahead and went over.
Now that was Joe Evelyn,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, sometimes our heroes are called home to serve a greater purpose, and
That's right.
there you go. I think that's exactly what he's doing, is serving a bigger purpose. So he's still helping out here,
Oh,
you know.
no doubt. I'm sure he's telling God how to run heaven. I have no doubt in my mind. God, don't you think you should be doing that? I know, my boy.
Carolyn admits that she had a very difficult time when she lost her beloved son. She struggled through bouts of depression, and she had to learn how to live her life without Luke physically being there. It was a tough road, but soon she would put her focus into her career in many organizations, which she could heal not only others, but herself. Carolyn Cloyd became the executive director for United Ways of Coles County in 2004. As she mentions, the United Way started in Denver in 1887 in response to the need of many within the community. It made its way to Mattoon in 1957. The United Way of Mattoon consolidated with the United Way of Charleston in 2000 to form the United Way of Coles County. Many famous and well-respected people have been involved with the United Way over its long history. Eleanor Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, and Bob Hope, to name a few. The United Way in Coles County assists by providing funding for numerous nonprofit agencies in the area. A couple of the partner agencies that United Way has helped have been the Children's Advocacy Center of East Central Illinois, Nine Muses Art Gallery, CTF Illinois, Charleston Area Church Food Pantries, Paradise Equestrian Therapy Center, the Lifespan Center, and more. To be exact, the United Way of Coles County partners with 35 local agencies, and Carolyn spearheads that effort. Carolyn is very passionate about the United Way branch here and has been the executive director of our local branch for almost 13 years. All of the money donated to the United Way of Coles County stays in the community, and Carolyn plays a huge part in that. Currently, to date, the Coles County United Way will be celebrating 60 years in operation. When interviewing Carolyn, I asked her to tell us a little bit about Coles County United Way and her passion, and this is what she had to say. Okay, Carolyn, if you can tell me a little bit of what sparked your interest to work with United Way.
Well, it just, on a personal level, I just wanted to do something. I'd worked in industry for 20 years, and I saw this job opening at United Way, and I just had the thought that I really, really always wanted a job where I could help people. And working for United Way has actually been everything I thought it would be, but even more. For one thing, just the network of working with other nonprofits. That has been remarkable.
And how many other ones do you guys partner with?
We partner with 35.
Wow. Okay.
And, just on a daily basis, too, I'll talk to others that are not actually United Way partners. Not for any reason other than they just have never, applied for funding or whatever. But it's interesting to me because I talk to other United Ways, and they say that, like in other communities, their nonprofits are not as close. They're not as tight-knit. And so that just makes me feel so lucky to have this nonprofit network here. But working with the nonprofits here, it's just nothing against the people I worked with in industry, but it's just so different.
Yes.
When you're working to change somebody's life and you can see that here's this person with this problem and, whatever their problem might be, today they're hungry and you helped them get food, and then you maybe directed them here so that they could get some assistance with their rent, or they have children who are at risk and you could help them get into Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I don't know. I mean, it just makes me, I hate to say that it makes me feel good. It does, but it's not about making me feel good. That's not what
it's rewarding.
It
though.
is
It's very
rewarding.
I agree.
So, and United Way itself is, I am very passionate. You asked me earlier about what my interests are and what I'm passionate about. I am very passionate about United Way because it is such a good organization that unites so many nonprofits and so many people throughout the community, and it has good standing in this community. This is our 60th anniversary this year.
Wow.
United Way itself has been around since 1887, but it's been in Coles County for 60 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's just it's made up of community members who are looking at issues in the community. What is going on here and what are our problems and how can we fix this? And that's what United Way is about.
As far as Carolyn's interest in volunteer work, she has actively been or currently is a volunteer for many organizations such as Camp New Hope, American Red Cross, CASA, Mattoon Kiwanis Club, American Run for the Fallen, Mattoon PADS, Mattoon and Charleston Community Food Centers, and Peace Mill Senior Nutrition Program of Sarah Bush Lincoln. Carolyn also has had a lifelong interest in genealogy and history, particularly military history, and is an advocate of safeguarding Coles County's community identity through effective historical preservation practices. So in lieu of this, she is a member of the Coles County Historical Preservation Advisory Council and Society. She has been a part of this council for 3 years, and she actively goes around the community learning and telling the stories of our veterans. She has been on WEIU, This Is Our Story Project twice, speaking about military history that took place in Mattoon and military history that took place in Arcola. She said it is so neat to interact with the vets that are still living and with their family members and reliving some of the stories as they tell it. Being part of the Coles County Historical Preservation Advisory Council has allowed Carolyn to see new memorials placed within our town that would have been lost to us without the knowledge of her and her colleagues. In addition to all of her volunteer work, she plays a more involved role being an active member of the Mattoon Kiwanis Club by working as their piecemeal coordinator and their PR and marketing chairperson. At one time, she served as the club president for a year term. She also spends most of her volunteer hours with the organization CASA. It is very dear to her heart because she is directly involved with children that have been in abused or neglectful situations and have never been subjected to loving individuals that care about their well-being. A lot of these children that she sees or services do not have parents or have been removed from their parents' care. There are some that don't even know their parents. Carolyn has been acknowledged by many organizations in our community. She has been a guest speaker for the Mattoon Exchange Club, and she has received various plaques and certificates from organizations such as the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Mattoon Kiwanis, and more. Carolyn even received a spotlight with CASA as their Volunteer to Know in 2015. As if Carolyn had any extra time, she does manage to squeeze in time for herself every once in a while. In lieu of her love for history, her biggest hobby is genealogy and gathering information about her own family history. During the interview, she got quite passionate about her hobby, and
History
this
is
is what she had to
probably my
say.
biggest hobby. I am extremely passionate about history, and I do a lot of things involving history. One of the things I've spent the most time on is genealogy. If you're not a genealogist, you won't get this, but if you are a genealogist, you'll so get this. There's just been some very tough struggles in finding some of the family members, some of my family members, and in trying to trace back my dad's military history. And there's really nothing more satisfying than searching and searching and finding something that you've been looking for. I couldn't find anything about my dad's military history when I first started looking, and my dad was old enough, he had forgotten a lot. He knew just enough to get me started, but then I couldn't find, I really wanted to find people that had served with him as well, and I mean, I searched and searched. And I did finally, I mean, there was nothing like that feeling of finally finding somebody that had served with my dad. And we got to meet him, and my dad got to spend a day with him. And the gentleman had all these photo albums, and he had pictures of my dad in them. So it was extremely exciting. Another thing that was exciting to me was my mother's father was illegitimate, and back in the day when he was born, 1912, that kind of thing was always hidden. And so it was a mystery who his father was, and I searched and searched for that and finally came up with a name. So, I mean, that's just very satisfying to me. But history, preserving the history of this community, of Mattoon, I've been involved in some projects here, and we did the Mattoon This Is Our Story with WEIU, that kind of thing. Just, I could talk about history forever. But there's that. I mean, I like some of the normal things that people like to do, like reading and you know, things like that. But history's the big thing.
In addition, she loves to read and write, and incidentally has been a part-time sports writer for the Mattoon Journal-Gazette, Charleston Times-Courier. It is evident to me why Carolyn is very influential to this field. I am constantly reminded of this very dedicated person that provides tireless efforts to work and serve and volunteer her services in our community. She has taken the love for her family, her heartbreaks in life, her deep-rooted respect for servicemen and women, her desire to help people, and her zest for history and knowledge, and molded these things into a position in life where she's able to be passionate about her life's work. She is a daughter, a mother, an educator, a historian, a patriot, a director, a social work role model, and an advocate for humanity in a whole. She is my friend, Carolyn Cloyd.